"I'll make you walk again," the mechanic whispered to the millionaire in the wheelchair. She laughed cruelly at his face, but when he knelt down and touched her legs, her smile froze forever. The wheelchair slammed against Ryan Mitchell's boots before he even saw her face. "Move," the woman said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "You're blocking my car." Ryan stepped back, hands still covered in oil from the engine he'd been working on, and watched as the most expensive vehicle he'd ever seen rolled into Cooper's Auto Repair like an invasion. The Mercedes-Benz S-Class gleamed under Detroit's gray afternoon sky, so out of place in this neighborhood that it might as well have been a spaceship. But it wasn't the car that made every mechanic in the shop stop working. It was her. She sat in that wheelchair like it was a throne, dressed in a business suit that cost more than Ryan's monthly rent, her hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. Everything about her screamed money and power, except for her legs, which sat motionless beneath an expensive skirt, useless as broken machinery. Eleanor Blackwell had arrived, and she was about to destroy Ryan's entire day. "Well?" Eleanor snapped, rolling herself forward with aggressive precision. "Are you deaf or just slow? I said my car needs fixing." Ryan wiped his hands on his work rag, forcing his voice to stay level. "Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Ryan Mitchell, owner of—" "I don't care who you are," Eleanor interrupted, her eyes scanning the shop with obvious disgust. "I care that this is apparently the only repair shop open for 20 miles and my car is making a noise that shouldn't exist in a vehicle this expensive." Across the shop, Tommy, Ryan's longtime employee, took a step forward, his jaw clenched. Ryan caught his eye and shook his head slightly. "Not worth it." "What kind of noise?" Ryan asked, keeping his tone professional. "The kind that tells me something is wrong," Eleanor said, her voice dripping with condescension. "I wouldn't expect someone in a place like this to understand, but my regular mechanic, a competent professional, would diagnose it in seconds." Ryan felt the familiar burn of being judged. It happened often enough in his line of work. People looked at his grease-stained hands and made assumptions about his intelligence, his worth, his entire existence. But something about this woman's casual cruelty hit differently. "Keys?" Ryan asked simply. Eleanor pulled the key fob from her designer purse and tossed it toward him. Not handed, tossed, like throwing food to a dog. The expensive metal tumbled through the air, and Ryan caught it reflexively. "Try not to break anything," Eleanor said. "I'm sure you're used to working on cars held together with duct tape, but this vehicle actually has value." Behind Ryan, he heard Pete, the oldest mechanic in the shop, a man with 40 years of experience, mutter something under his breath that definitely violated YouTube's content policy. Ryan popped the hood. The engine was pristine, perfectly maintained, exactly what you'd expect from someone who could afford a car like this. The high-pitched whine Eleanor mentioned was obvious immediately, serpentine belt starting to fail. 20 minutes of work, maybe 30 if he took his time. But then Ryan saw something else, something that made his blood turn cold. He crouched down by the rear wheel, his trained eye catching what most people would miss. The brake line, the crucial component that stood between controlled stopping and catastrophic failure, was corroded through in 2 places. Thin spots where the metal had degraded so badly it was practically transparent. One hard stop, one emergency brake, and the line would snap completely. At highway speeds, in a car this heavy, with a driver who couldn't use her legs to brace for impact, the result would be devastating. Ryan stood slowly, his heart pounding. He looked at this woman who'd rolled into his shop radiating contempt, who'd treated him and his team like they were beneath her notice, who'd made it crystal clear that she considered them all nothing more than necessary servants. And he was about to save her life. "Ma'am," Ryan said carefully, walking back to where Eleanor sat, scrolling through her phone with bored impatience. "You've got a serpentine belt issue, that's the noise. But there's something more serious we need to discuss." "I don't pay for problems I didn't ask about," Eleanor said without looking up from her screen. "Fix the belt. Send me the bill. I have actual important things to do today." "Your brake lines are corroded through," Ryan continued, his voice firm. "Both rear lines are about to fail. If they go while you're driving—" Eleanor's head snapped up, her eyes blazing. "Let me guess. You're about to tell me I need some expensive repair that coincidentally you can provide. How convenient." "Ma'am, this isn't—" "Save the sales pitch," Eleanor cut him off, her voice rising. Do you think I'm stupid? Do you think because I'm sitting in this wheelchair that I don't recognize a scam when I hear one? The shop had gone silent. Even the classic rock radio seemed to have stopped between songs. This isn't a scam, Ryan said, working to keep his voice steady. This is a safety issue. Your brake lines are perfectly fine, Eleanor finished. My regular mechanic does comprehensive inspections every service. He would have caught any real problem. But you see a woman in a wheelchair, a woman in an expensive car, and you think easy target. Well, you picked the wrong person to try this on. Ryan felt something snap inside his chest. Not anger exactly. Something deeper than that. A bone-deep exhaustion with being dismissed, being assumed dishonest, being treated as less than human because his hands were dirty and his shop wasn't in a wealthy zip code. Tommy, Ryan called out, not taking his eyes off Eleanor. Bring me my phone. Tommy handed over the device, confusion clear on his face. Ryan switched the phone to camera mode and walked back to the rear wheel. Come here, he said to Eleanor. Excuse me? Her eyebrows shot up. I said come here, Ryan repeated, his voice carrying an edge now. You want to see what a scam looks like? I'll show you exactly what's under your car. Then, you can decide if I'm lying. For a moment, Eleanor looked like she was going to refuse. Then something shifted in her expression. Pride, maybe, or the desire to prove him wrong, and she rolled her wheelchair forward. Ryan crouched down again, holding his phone so the camera captured the corroded brake lines in sharp detail. See that? He zoomed in on where the metal was eaten through, held together by nothing but rust and crystallized brake fluid. That's your rear brake line, and that, he shifted the angle, is where it's about to snap completely. Eleanor leaned down from her wheelchair, squinting at the phone screen. Even she couldn't deny what was directly in front of her eyes. The evidence was irrefutable. Her face went pale. That's impossible, she whispered. My mechanic, he inspected everything 6 months ago. He would have— 6 months is a long time, Ryan said, standing up, especially if the car's been sitting. Moisture accelerates corrosion. This didn't happen overnight, but it happened. Eleanor stared at the phone screen for a long moment, her hands gripping her wheelchair's armrests so tightly her knuckles turned white. Ryan watched emotions flash across her face. Disbelief, fear, and something else. Something that looked like the beginning of shame. Then her mask slammed back into place. Fine, she said curtly. Fix it. Both problems. How much and how long? Ryan calculated quickly. Serpentine belt is $60 in parts, 1 hour labor. Brake lines are more complex. I need to replace both rear lines completely, flush the system, test everything thoroughly. Total cost around $800. Time, minimum 3 hours, possibly 4. 4 hours? Eleanor's voice rose sharply. That's unacceptable. I have a meeting downtown in 90 minutes. Just do the belt. No, Ryan said simply. The single word hung in the air like a challenge. Eleanor's head turned slowly toward him, her eyes narrowing. What did you just say to me? I said no, Ryan repeated, his voice steady and clear. I'm not letting you drive out of here in a death trap. Those brake lines could fail any time. On the highway, in traffic, anywhere. I won't be responsible for that. You don't get to tell me what to do, Eleanor said, her voice dropping to something dangerous. This is my car. I'm the customer. You work for me. Wrong, Ryan said, feeling a strange calm settle over him. I work for myself. This is my shop. And in my shop, I don't send people out to die in unsafe vehicles. Not for any amount of money. Eleanor's face flushed with anger. You can't force me to get the work done. Give me my keys. Sure, Ryan said. Right after you sign a liability waiver stating that I informed you of the dangerous condition of your vehicle and you chose to decline the repair against my professional recommendation. And after I call the police to report an unsafe vehicle about to enter public roads. He pulled out his phone again, thumb hovering over the screen. You wouldn't dare, Eleanor breathed. Ryan started dialing. Not the police, not yet, but she didn't know that. Wait! Eleanor's voice cracked across the shop like a whip. Then quieter, with visible effort. Wait, just wait! Ryan lowered the phone. Eleanor took a shaking breath, and when she spoke again, her voice was different. Still angry, but underneath the anger was something raw and painful. Why do you care? She asked. You don't know me. I've been nothing but cruel to you since I arrived. I've insulted you, insulted your shop, treated you like you're beneath me. So why do you care if I drive away and something happens?" The question was genuine, and it deserved a genuine answer. Ryan thought about his daughter Sophie, about the kind of man he wanted her to see when she looked at her father. He thought about his own father, who taught him that a mechanic's job wasn't just fixing machines. It was protecting the people who trusted you with their lives. "Because it's the right thing to do," Ryan said simply. "And because nobody deserves to die because of failed brakes, no matter how they treat other people. Even people who treat me like garbage." Something cracked in Eleanor's expression. Just for a heartbeat, Ryan saw past all the anger and defensiveness to the agony underneath. Raw, bleeding pain that had nothing to do with her paralyzed legs, and everything to do with her broken soul. Then the moment passed, and her cold mask returned. "3 hours?" she asked. "Minimum," Ryan confirmed. Eleanor's jaw tightened. "Fine, I'll cancel the meeting. But I'm watching every single thing you do. If you try to add any unnecessary work, if you try to cheat me in any way—" "You'll what?" Ryan asked, not unkindly. "You'll leave a bad review? You've already made it clear what you think of me in this place. I'm not doing this for your approval, ma'am. I'm doing it because it's my job to keep you safe." Tommy brought over a folding chair, a regular chair, since Eleanor already had her wheelchair, and set it up where she could watch the work area. Eleanor positioned herself like a general surveying a battlefield, her eyes tracking Ryan's every movement. Ryan got to work, hyper-aware of her scrutiny. He explained each step as he went, partly out of professional courtesy, and partly because he sensed that Eleanor was someone who needed to understand, to maintain some illusion of control. "The serpentine belt drives all your accessories," Ryan said, removing the old belt. "Alternator, power steering, air conditioning. When it fails, everything stops working." "I'm not mechanically ignorant," Eleanor said sharply. "I know what a serpentine belt does." "Didn't say you were," Ryan replied evenly. The work continued in tense silence. Ryan moved to the brake lines, and the complexity of the repair demanded his complete focus. But during the quiet moments, waiting for parts, letting brake fluid drain, Eleanor started talking. Not to him exactly. More like filling the silence with observations, criticisms, commentary about the state of the neighborhood, the decline of American manufacturing, the death of quality workmanship. But Ryan noticed something beneath her words. Knowledge. Real deep knowledge about business, about economics, about the forces that had hollowed out communities like this one. "My father owned a shop like this," Eleanor said suddenly, watching Ryan thread a new brake line with careful precision. 3 of them, actually, before everything changed. It was the first personal thing she'd shared. Ryan glanced up, surprised. "That right?" he asked carefully. "Long time ago," Eleanor said, her voice distant. "Before the world decided that people like my father, people who worked with their hands, who fixed things instead of just throwing them away, weren't valuable anymore." She stopped abruptly, like she'd said too much. Ryan went back to work, but something had shifted. The anger in the shop had diffused slightly, replaced by something more complicated, almost like understanding. An hour into the repair, Eleanor's phone rang. She answered with her business voice, crisp, commanding, nothing like the slightly softer tone she'd been using. "Yes, I'm aware. I can't make it, because my car broke down. That's irrelevant. Reschedule for tomorrow, same time, non-negotiable." She ended the call without saying goodbye, frustration radiating from her rigid posture. "Important meeting?" Ryan asked, not looking up. "A performance review," Eleanor said. Then, unexpectedly, "I run a consulting firm. Corporate restructuring. I tell companies how to cut costs and maximize efficiency." "Sounds challenging," Ryan said diplomatically. Eleanor's laugh was bitter, broken. "It's soul-destroying. I spend my days firing people, dismantling departments, turning human beings into line items on spreadsheets. I make companies profitable by making people miserable, and everyone hates me for it." Ryan paused in his work, really looking at her. "Do you hate yourself for it?" The question was too personal, too direct. But Eleanor didn't snap at him this time. "Every single day," she whispered. Before Ryan could respond, Marcus, the youngest mechanic, called out from the front office. "Ryan, Something fell out of the Mercedes. Marcus walked over holding a medical alert bracelet, its metal gleaming under the shop lights. It must have fallen from Eleanor's purse when she transferred to her wheelchair. Ryan took it, reading the engraved information. Eleanor Blackwell, incomplete spinal cord injury. C6, C7 paralysis below waist. Emergency contact. Emma Blackwell, daughter. The words incomplete injury burned into Ryan's vision. Incomplete, not complete, not permanent, not hopeless. Incomplete meant nerve pathways still existed. Incomplete meant potential for recovery. Incomplete meant that with the right treatment, the right therapy, the right intervention, there might still be a chance. Ryan looked at Marcus, whose eyes were wide with the same realization. Then he looked at Eleanor, who'd gone perfectly still, her face drained of color. "That's private," she said, her voice barely audible. Ryan walked over slowly, the bracelet held carefully in his oil-stained hands. "Ms. Blackwell, have you been doing physical therapy? Give that back." Her voice shook. "Because if your injury is incomplete, there are treatments that could—" "I said give it back!" Eleanor's scream tore through the shop, raw and desperate, and full of 2 years of suppressed agony. "You don't know anything. You're a mechanic. You fix cars, not people. You don't get to stand there with your dirty hands and your simple solutions and tell me about my body, my injury, my life." The pain in her voice was so visceral that everyone in the shop flinched. Ryan crouched down in front of her wheelchair, speaking gently. "How long has it been?" "Since the accident." Eleanor's hands were shaking so badly she could barely grip her armrests. 2 years, she whispered. 2 years, 3 months, and 17 days. 783 days of waking up in this chair. 783 days of being half a person. "You're not half a person," Ryan said firmly. "Yes, I am." Eleanor's voice broke completely, and suddenly she was crying. Not delicate tears, but wrenching, body-shaking sobs that seemed to tear themselves from somewhere deep inside her. "I can't walk. I can't feel my legs. I can't do the simplest things without help. My husband left me because he couldn't handle having a crippled wife. My daughter barely speaks to me because I've become a monster. I've lost everything, and you're standing there telling me I'm not broken." The word crippled hung in the air, ugly and self-inflicted. Ryan stayed crouched in front of her, letting her pain spill out. "The doctors said I might walk again," Eleanor continued through her sobs. "They said with intensive therapy, with dedication, I might recover partial function, maybe even full function, but I couldn't do it. I couldn't handle the hope. Do you understand? Hope is worse than despair because hope can fail. Hope means trying and possibly falling. Hope means believing in something and watching it die." She looked down at her motionless legs. "So I gave up. I chose anger instead of hope. I chose cruelty instead of vulnerability. I spent 2 years pushing away everyone who tried to help me because it was easier than risking failure. And now I'm so far gone that I don't even recognize myself anymore." The confession hung in the air, raw and devastating. Ryan stood slowly and walked to his small office. When he returned, he was holding a photograph, a picture of a young girl with a bright smile standing on her own 2 feet. "This is my daughter, Sophie," Ryan said, showing Eleanor the image. "She's 10 years old. 3 years ago, she was in a car accident. Drunk driver ran a red light. Sophie's legs were shattered, broken in 8 places total." Eleanor looked at the photo through tear-blurred eyes. "Doctors said she'd probably never walk normally again," Ryan continued, his voice thick with emotion. "Said she'd need braces, crutches, maybe a wheelchair for life. She was 7 years old, and they were telling me her life was essentially over before it started." He pulled out another photo, this one showing Sophie in a hospital bed, both legs in casts, her face twisted in pain. "There was this physical therapist, Dr. James Chen. He specialized in pediatric trauma rehabilitation. He told me something I'll never forget." Ryan's voice broke slightly. He said, "The body wants to heal. It's designed to heal. But healing requires 2 things, the right intervention and the courage to endure the pain that comes with recovery." Ryan showed Eleanor a 3rd photo, Sophie taking her first steps after surgery, supported by parallel bars, determination blazing in her young eyes. "The therapy was brutal," Ryan said. Sophie cried every single session. She begged me to let her stop. She screamed that she hated me for making her try. There were nights I almost gave in, almost let her quit because I couldn't stand watching her suffer. But you didn't, Eleanor whispered. No, Ryan confirmed, because Dr. Chen reminded me that temporary pain leads to permanent healing, that giving up meant condemning her to a lifetime of limitations. He showed the final photo, Sophie from last month, running across a soccer field, her legs strong and whole, her smile radiant with joy. She doesn't just walk now, Ryan said. She runs, she plays sports, she climbs trees and scares me half to death. And none of that would have happened if I'd let her choose comfort over courage. Eleanor stared at the photos, tears streaming down her face. Ryan knelt down in front of her wheelchair again, looking directly into her eyes. Dr. Chen moved his practice to Detroit 6 months ago, Ryan said quietly. He's 15 minutes from here. He specializes in incomplete spinal cord injuries. And Ms. Blackwell, if you're willing to try, really try, I'm going to make you a promise. What promise? Eleanor's voice was barely a whisper. Ryan reached out and gently touched her wheelchair. I'll make you walk again. Eleanor's laugh was harsh, broken, full of disbelief. That's impossible. You're a mechanic, not a miracle worker. You can't fix people like you fix cars. Ryan smiled, not smugly, but with absolute conviction. I fix broken things, he said simply. That's what I do. I find what's damaged. I figure out what needs to be repaired, and I don't stop working until it functions again. And Eleanor Blackwell, you are not beyond repair. Not your legs, not your spirit, not your life. For a long, trembling moment, Eleanor just stared at him. Then she said the words that would change everything. I don't believe you. Ryan's smile widened. Good. That means you still care enough to argue. That means there's still fight in you. So prove me wrong. Come to one appointment with Dr. Chen. Just one. If he says there's no hope, I'll never mention this again. But if there's even the smallest chance, don't you owe it to yourself to find out? Eleanor's entire body was shaking. I'm terrified. I know, Ryan said gently. But being scared means you still have something to fight for. That's not weakness. That's the first step towards strength. The brake line repair took another 90 minutes. During that time, Eleanor was silent, lost in thought. When Ryan finally tested the brakes, 3 separate times refusing to rush, he pulled the Mercedes around to the front of the shop. All finished, he announced. Your car is safe. Eleanor transferred herself back into the driver's seat with practiced efficiency. She started the engine, tested the brakes herself, felt the smooth response that came from properly functioning systems. Before she closed the door, she looked at Ryan one final time. This Dr. Chen, she said. What's his number? Ryan pulled out his phone and sent the contact information to her. Tell him Ryan Mitchell referred you, he said. He'll take care of you. Eleanor nodded, her expression unreadable. Then she did something that shocked every person in the shop. I'm sorry, she said, her voice clear and sincere, for how I treated you, all of you, for every cruel word, every dismissive look, every moment I made you feel less than human. I was wrong, completely, inexcusably wrong. Ryan smiled. Apology accepted. I don't deserve your forgiveness, Eleanor said. Maybe not, Ryan agreed, but I'm giving it anyway. That's what decent people do. As the Mercedes pulled away, Tommy came to stand beside Ryan, watching the expensive car disappear down the street. Boss, Tommy said slowly, did you really just promise to make that woman walk again? Ryan thought about Sophie's first steps after therapy, about the moment she'd run to him without crutches for the first time, about the miracle that came from refusing to accept defeat. No, he said quietly. I promised to help her find hope. The walking, that's up to her. Pete clapped Ryan on the shoulder with his weathered hand. Your daddy would be proud of you, son. Real proud. Ryan felt emotion tighten his throat. I hope so. What none of them knew, what Ryan couldn't possibly have seen, was that Eleanor Blackwell had pulled over 3 blocks away. She sat in her car, staring at Dr. Chen's contact information on her phone screen, her finger hovering over the call button. For 2 years, she'd convinced herself that hope was dangerous, that trying was foolish, that accepting her limitations was the only logical choice. But sitting there in her perfectly repaired car, saved by a mechanic she'd treated like dirt, Eleanor felt something she thought had died inside her. A spark. Small, fragile, terrifying, but undeniably alive. She thought about her daughter Emma, who'd stopped visiting because Eleanor's bitterness had become toxic. She thought about the person she'd been before the accident, before anger had consumed everything good inside her. She thought about Ryan Mitchell's absolute conviction when he'd said, "I'll make you walk again." Eleanor took a shaking breath and pressed the call button. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Then a warm voice answered, "Dr. Chen's office. This is Rebecca speaking. How can I help you?" Eleanor's voice trembled as she spoke the hardest words she'd said in 2 years. "My name is Eleanor Blackwell. I was referred by Ryan Mitchell. And I think I need help." 3 weeks had passed since Eleanor Blackwell made that phone call. 3 weeks since she'd sat in her car, trembling with fear and something that felt dangerously close to hope, and dialed Dr. James Chen's number. Now she sat in the rehabilitation center's waiting room, her wheelchair positioned precisely between 2 potted plants, her hands gripping a folder of medical records so tightly the edges had started to crease. The folder represented 2 years of doctor visits, specialists, second opinions, and third opinions, all saying variations of the same thing. Incomplete injury, potential for recovery, requires intensive therapy. Words she'd heard so many times they'd lost meaning. Words she'd stopped believing could apply to her, until a grease-stained mechanic had looked her in the eyes and promised to make her walk again. "Ms. Blackwell." A nurse appeared in the doorway, clipboard in hand, warm smile on her face. "Dr. Chen is ready for you." Eleanor's stomach twisted. She'd cancelled this appointment twice already, rescheduling at the last minute with elaborate excuses. Dr. Chen's office had been patient, understanding, almost too kind. It made Eleanor suspicious. Nobody was that kind without wanting something. But here she was, 3rd appointment scheduled, actually present this time. Ryan Mitchell had called her yesterday, just to check in, he'd said, like they were friends instead of customer and service provider, like he actually cared whether she showed up. "You promised to try," he'd reminded her gently. "Just 1 appointment. That's all I asked." So she'd come. Not because she believed anything would change, but because some small, stubborn part of her refused to prove Ryan right about her cowardice. The examination room was different from what Eleanor expected. No sterile white walls or harsh fluorescent lighting. Instead, warm colors, natural light streaming through large windows, and equipment that looked more like a gym than a medical facility. Dr. James Chen stood when she entered, a man in his 50s with kind eyes and surprisingly muscular forearms. He wore casual clothes instead of a white coat, and when he shook her hand, his grip was firm, but gentle. "Ms. Blackwell," he said, his voice carrying a trace of an accent Eleanor couldn't quite place. "Ryan Mitchell speaks very highly of you." Eleanor's eyebrows rose. "Does he? That's generous, considering I was unspeakably rude to him." Dr. Chen smiled. "He mentioned that too. He also said you apologized, which apparently made quite an impression. Ryan doesn't refer patients to me lightly. He only sends people he believes are ready to fight." "I'm not ready to fight," Eleanor said bluntly. "I'm here because I made a promise I'm already regretting." "Honesty, Doctor," Chen said, nodding appreciatively. "Good. We'll need a lot of that. May I examine you?" The examination was thorough, and unlike anything Eleanor had experienced in 2 years of medical appointments. Dr. Chen didn't just check her reflexes and range of motion. He asked questions, dozens of them. About her accident, yes, but also about her life before, her work, her daughter, her dreams. "You used to run marathons, Doctor," Chen observed, reading through her medical history. "Boston, New York, Chicago. Impressive." "Used to," Eleanor emphasized bitterly. "Past tense. Dead dreams." "Are they?" Dr. Chen's eyes met hers. "Or are they just dreams that require a different path?" Eleanor laughed harshly. "I can't feel my legs, Dr. Chen. I think the marathon dreams are pretty definitively dead." "Doctor." Chen set down the file and pulled up a chair directly across from Eleanor, sitting so they were at eye level. "Tell me something," he said. "When you ran those marathons, did you ever hit a wall? A point where your body screamed at you to stop, where every muscle burned, where your mind told you it was impossible to continue?" "Of course," Eleanor said. "Every marathon has a wall." "And what did you do when you hit it?" Eleanor was quiet for a moment, remembering. I kept running, because stopping meant failing, and I don't fail. You don't fail, Dr. Chen repeated softly. Except you've been failing for 2 years now, haven't you? Failing to try, failing to hope, failing to fight for yourself the way you fought through those marathons. The words hit like a physical blow. Eleanor felt tears starting. Again, always crying lately, and hated herself for the weakness. You don't understand, she whispered. Running through pain when you know you'll finish is different from fighting when you might fail. When you probably will fail. You're right, Dr. Chen agreed. It is different. It's harder. It requires more courage, not less. And Eleanor, I've reviewed your scans, your medical history, every test result from the past 2 years. Do you want to know what I see? Eleanor wasn't sure she did, but she nodded anyway. Dr. Chen pulled up images on his computer. Scans of Eleanor's spine, detailed and color-coded. He pointed to specific areas, explaining in terms she could understand. Your spinal cord injury is at C6, C7, incomplete classification. You have preserved sensation in some areas, which means neural pathways are still intact. Your muscles haven't atrophied significantly, which tells me your body is still trying to send signals even if your brain isn't receiving them properly. He pulled up another image. This is remarkable, actually. Most patients with incomplete injuries who don't pursue immediate therapy show significant degradation within the first year. But he gestured at the screen, you're maintaining, almost like your body is waiting for you to decide to use it again. What are you saying? Eleanor's voice shook. I'm saying that with intensive therapy, and I mean intensive, Eleanor, not casual physical therapy twice a week, there's a realistic chance you could regain significant function. Walking might be possible. Not guaranteed, but possible. The word possible hung in the air like a dangerous promise. How much chance? Eleanor asked. Give me a percentage. I need data, not hope. Dr. Chen considered carefully. Based on your specific injury pattern, your overall health and your physical condition pre-injury, I'd estimate a 60 to 70% chance of regaining the ability to walk with assistance. Maybe 40% chance of walking independently. 10% chance of full recovery. Numbers. Data. Something Eleanor could process without emotions clouding her judgment. That means there's a 30 to 40% chance I'll go through months of brutal therapy and end up exactly where I am now, Eleanor said. In this chair. Broken. Yes, Dr. Chen agreed. That's the risk. But Eleanor, there's a 100% chance that if you don't try, you'll stay exactly where you are. The question isn't whether you might fail. The question is whether you can live with yourself if you don't try. Eleanor closed her eyes, feeling the weight of 2 years of anger and bitterness pressing down on her chest. I have a daughter, she said suddenly. Emma. She's 17. Smart. Beautiful. Everything I could have hoped for. Eleanor's voice cracked. And she hates me. She visits once a month out of obligation, stays for 20 minutes, and leaves. Do you know what I see in her eyes when she looks at me? Dr. Chen waited. Pity, Eleanor whispered, and disappointment. Not because I'm in a wheelchair. Emma would never judge me for that. But because I've become someone she doesn't recognize. Someone bitter and cruel and so consumed by anger that there's nothing left of the mother she used to know. Tears were flowing freely now, and Eleanor didn't even try to stop them. Last month was her birthday. She didn't want to celebrate with me. She said, Eleanor's breath hitched. She said she missed having a mother, and that sitting in a room with me just reminded her of everything she'd lost. Dr. Chen's expression was compassionate but firm. So, change. Become someone she can recognize again. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple, Dr. Chen countered. Not easy. Simple and easy are very different things. You've spent 2 years choosing bitterness because it was easier than choosing hope. Now choose differently. Eleanor shook her head, overwhelmed. I don't know if I can. Then let me ask you something else, Dr. Chen said. If Emma came to you right now and said she wanted to try something difficult, something scary, something she might fail at, what would you tell her? The answer came immediately. I'd tell her to try anyway. That failure is temporary but regret is permanent. That she's stronger than she knows. And yet you won't give yourself the same advice? Eleanor had no response to that. Dr. Chen stood, walking to the window. I'm going to be honest with you, Eleanor. I don't take every patient who comes through that door. Rehabilitation from spinal cord injury requires total commitment from both therapist and patient. If you're not ready to fight, I can't help you. So you're rejecting me? Eleanor felt a flash of her old anger. No, Dr. Chen said, turning back to face her. I'm asking you to make a choice. Not today, not right now, but soon. Because if you commit to this, I'm committing everything I have to helping you. But I won't waste my time or yours if you're just going through the motions to satisfy a promise you made to a mechanic. He pulled out a business card and handed it to Eleanor. This is my personal number. When you've decided, really decided, call me. We'll start immediately. Eleanor took the card with shaking hands. And if I decide I can't do it, then you go back to your life exactly as it is, Dr. Chen said gently. And in 10 years, when Emma has children of her own, you can explain to your grandchildren why you chose to stay in that chair when you had a chance to fight for something better. The words were harsh, but necessary, and Eleanor felt them cut straight through every excuse she'd built over 2 years. Dr. Chen walked her to the door, his hand briefly touching her shoulder. Ryan Mitchell told me something interesting when he called to refer you. He said you were the strongest person he'd met in years, even if you'd forgotten it yourself. I think he's right. After Eleanor left, she sat in her car for a long time, Dr. Chen's card burning in her hand like a live coal. 60 to 70% chance. Not guaranteed, not certain, but possible. Eleanor pulled out her phone and scrolled to Emma's contact. Her daughter's birthday photo stared back at her, Emma blowing out candles, surrounded by friends, noticeably happier than she ever looked during their obligatory monthly visits. Eleanor's finger hovered over the call button. Then she did something she hadn't done in 2 years. She called her daughter not because it was the scheduled visit day, not out of obligation, but because she wanted to hear Emma's voice. The phone rang 4 times. Eleanor almost hung up. Then, "Mum?" Emma's voice was cautious, confused. "Is everything okay? It's not our usual day." "I know," Eleanor said, her voice shaking. I wanted to talk to you. Really talk. Not the 20-minute obligation visit. Actually talk." Silence on the other end. Then carefully, "About what?" "About me being a terrible mother for the past 2 years, Eleanor said, tears streaming down her face. "About how I've let my anger destroy the most important relationship in my life. About how I want to try to be better, even though I'm terrified I can't." More silence. Eleanor could hear Emma breathing, could almost feel her daughter's surprise through the phone. "Mom," Emma finally said, her voice thick with emotion. "What happened?" "I met a mechanic who refused to give up on me," Eleanor said, "even when I gave him every reason to. And I'm tired, Emma. I'm so tired of being angry all the time." "I'm tired too," Emma whispered. "I miss you, Mom. The real you, not the person you've become." Eleanor closed her eyes, Dr. Chen's card still clutched in her hand. "I'm going to try to come back," she said, "to be the person you remember. It's going to be hard, and I might fail, but I'm going to try. Will you help me?" Emma's sob came through the phone clearly. "Yes. God, yes, Mom. I'll help you. I've been waiting for you to ask." They talked for an hour. Really talked. Like they hadn't since before the accident. About Emma's life, her college plans, her fears and dreams. About Eleanor's pain and anger and the choice she was facing. When they finally hung up, Eleanor sat in the parking lot as the sun set over Detroit, watching the sky turn orange and gold. Then she picked up her phone again and dialed the number on Dr. Chen's card. He answered on the second ring. "Dr. Chen." "It's Eleanor Blackwell," she said, her voice steady despite her trembling hands. "I've made my decision. I want to fight. I want to try. I want my life back." "When can you start?" Dr. Chen asked, and Eleanor could hear the smile in his voice. Eleanor thought about Emma, about Ryan Mitchell's absolute conviction, about 2 years of wasted time she could never get back. "Tomorrow," she said. "I start tomorrow." "Good," Dr. Chen said. "Because, Eleanor, I'm going to work you harder than any marathon you've ever run. I'm going to push you past every limit you think you have. It's going to hurt, and you're going to hate me sometimes, and there will be days you want to quit." "I know," Eleanor said. "But if you give me everything you have," Dr. Chen continued, If you fight with the same determination that got you through Boston and New York and Chicago, I believe we can make Ryan Mitchell's promise come true." Eleanor looked down at her legs, still motionless, still useless, still a constant reminder of everything she'd lost. But for the first time in 783 days, when she looked at them, she didn't just see loss. She saw a possibility. "Let's make me walk again," Eleanor said, and meant it. The first session nearly killed her. Not physically, though Eleanor's muscles screamed like they were being torn apart, but emotionally. Dr. Chen had warned her it would be brutal. He hadn't mentioned it would be humiliating. "Again," Dr. Chen said, his voice calm but unyielding. Eleanor lay on the padded therapy table, sweat soaking through her expensive athletic wear, tears of frustration burning her eyes. The exercise was simple in theory. Activate her core muscles, engage her hip flexors, attempt the smallest movement in her right leg. She'd been trying for 45 minutes. Nothing, not even a tremor. "I can't," Eleanor gasped, her entire body shaking from exertion. "It's not working. I told you this was pointless." "You're trying to use strength," Dr. Chen said, placing his hand on her abdomen. "Stop. Breathe. Feel the connection between your brain and your body. It's still there, Eleanor. You just have to remember how to find it." "I've been trying for 45 minutes. Eleanor's voice rose, sharp with desperation. "There's nothing to find. The connection is broken." "Doctor." Chen's expression didn't change. Again, Eleanor wanted to scream, wanted to throw something, wanted to roll off this table and wheel herself out of this place and never come back. Instead, she closed her eyes and tried again. Focus. Breathe. Feel. Her brain sent the signal. "Move. Please just move." "Nothing. I hate this," Eleanor whispered. "I hate you. I hate Ryan Mitchell for convincing me to try. I hate everything about this." "Good," Dr. Chen said. "Anger is energy. Use it." Eleanor's eyes snapped open. "What?" "You've spent 2 years being angry at the world," Dr. Chen explained. "Now be angry at your injury. Be furious with your body for not cooperating. Channel every ounce of that rage into making something happen." It was the strangest therapy advice Eleanor had ever heard, but she tried. She thought about her daughter's disappointed face, about her ex-husband who'd called her damaged goods, about every pitying look from strangers who saw the wheelchair before they saw her, about 2 years of bitter, wasted time. She thought about Ryan Mitchell's promise, "I'll make you walk again," and she got angry. Not sad angry, not defeated angry, pure, burning, fight-back angry. Eleanor took a breath, focused every molecule of rage in her body, and sent the signal one more time. Her right toe moved, barely a millimeter, so small it might have been imagination. But Dr. Chen saw it. "There," he said quietly, his hand still on her abdomen. "You felt that, didn't you?" Eleanor's breath caught. "Did I? Was that real?" "Again," Dr. Chen commanded. "Right now, while the pathway is active." Eleanor tried again, and this time she felt it. The faintest sensation, like static electricity, running from her brain down her spine into her leg. Her toe moved again. Definite, this time. Visible. Eleanor started crying, not from frustration this time, but from something she'd thought was dead inside her. Joy. "I did it," she whispered. "Oh my God, I actually did it." "That's your baseline," Dr. Chen said, making notes on his tablet. "That tiny movement is where we start. Tomorrow we'll try for 2 millimeters. Next week maybe we'll get your whole foot involved. In a month I'll be walking?" Eleanor's hope blazed bright. Dr. Chen's expression sobered. "In a month you might be able to lift your leg an inch off the table. Eleanor, I need you to understand something crucial. What just happened, that tiny toe movement, represents weeks of progress for most patients. You're going to need patience I'm not sure you possess." The joy dimmed slightly. "How long?" "Total. How long until I walk?" "If everything goes perfectly, 6 months minimum. More realistically, a year, maybe longer." Eleanor's heart sank. "A year of this?" "A year of harder than this," Dr. Chen corrected. "What we did today was the easy part. Next week, I'm going to introduce electrical stimulation. It's going to hurt. The week after, we'll add weight resistance. That's going to hurt more. We're going to rebuild neural pathways your brain forgot existed, and the process is going to be agonizing. He sat down beside the therapy table, his expression serious. This is your last chance to walk away, Eleanor. Once we really begin, once you commit to the full protocol, backing out means wasting months of progress. So I'm asking you now, with full knowledge of what's ahead, are you absolutely certain you want to do this? Eleanor thought about that single toe movement, about the electrical sensation of her brain reconnecting with her body, about Emma's voice on the phone saying, "I've been waiting for you to ask." "I'm certain," she said. Dr. Chen nodded. "Then let's talk about your life outside this room. Because therapy 3 times a week isn't enough. You're going to need to restructure everything." Over the next hour, Dr. Chen outlined a schedule that made Eleanor's previous marathon training look relaxing. Therapy sessions 3 times weekly, each lasting 3 hours. Daily exercises at home, another 2 hours minimum. Dietary changes to support muscle rebuilding. Sleep schedule modifications to optimize recovery. "You'll need to reduce your work hours significantly," Dr. Chen said. "This has to become your primary focus." Eleanor's stomach twisted. "I run a company. I have clients, deadlines, responsibilities, and you'll have to delegate them," Dr. Chen said firmly. "Eleanor, you can't do this halfway. Either you commit completely, or we stop now." It was an impossible choice. Her company was everything she'd built after the accident, the one area of life where she still felt competent and in control. But as she sat there, her right toe still tingling from that miraculous tiny movement, Eleanor realized something profound. Her company had become a hiding place, a way to avoid dealing with her real life, her real pain, her real relationships. "I'll make it work," she said. The second week was worse than the first. Dr. Chen introduced electrical stimulation, targeted pulses designed to force Eleanor's muscles to remember their function. The sensation was bizarre and deeply uncomfortable, like being shocked from the inside. "Muscle memory isn't just a metaphor," Dr. Chen explained as Eleanor gritted her teeth through another round of stimulation. "Your muscles literally remember how to function. We're just reminding them." But the real challenge wasn't physical. It was mental. Every session ended with Eleanor having moved mere millimeters. Progress so incremental, it felt meaningless. She'd spend 3 hours in brutal effort and leave having accomplished what a healthy person did without thinking. The frustration was crushing. "I moved my toe 3 millimeters today," Eleanor told Emma during one of their now weekly phone calls. 3 millimeters. "At this rate, I'll be walking sometime around my 80th birthday." "But you moved it," Emma said. "Mom, 3 weeks ago you couldn't move it at all." Eleanor wanted to argue, but Emma was right. 3 weeks ago, her toe had been as dead as stone. Now it moved. Barely, but definitely. "Dr. Chen says I'm progressing faster than expected," Eleanor admitted. "He seemed surprised." "You were always stubborn," Emma said, and Eleanor could hear the smile in her voice. "Remember when you decided to run your first marathon? You'd never run more than 3 miles, and you chose Boston. Everyone said you'd never qualify." Eleanor remembered. She'd trained like a fanatic, ignored every doubt, and qualified with 2 minutes to spare. "I miss that version of me," Eleanor whispered. "She's still there," Emma said. "You just have to find her again." The third week brought a breakthrough that made Eleanor cry in the middle of therapy. Dr. Chen had her in the parallel bars, metal rails she could grip while attempting to support her own weight. They'd been working up to this for days, building upper body strength, practicing balance. "On 3, Dr. Chen said, positioned behind her with a support harness. 1, 2, 3. Eleanor pulled herself up, arms straining, core engaged. Her legs held her weight. For exactly 4 seconds before they buckled, but 4 seconds of actually standing. Eleanor collapsed back into her wheelchair, sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. "I stood," she gasped between sobs. "I actually stood." 4.2 seconds, Dr. Chen confirmed, making notes. "New personal record. Tomorrow, we'll aim for 5. That night, Eleanor called Ryan Mitchell for the first time since starting therapy. "Ryan?" Her voice shook with emotion. "I stood today. Just for a few seconds, but I stood." The silence on the other end lasted so long, Eleanor thought the call had dropped. Then Ryan's voice came through, thick with emotion. "Eleanor, I'm so proud of you. Those simple words broke something open inside her chest. "I haven't heard that in so long," Eleanor whispered. "Not from my ex-husband, not from my colleagues. Emma said it last week, but hearing it from you—" She stopped, unable to continue. "You're doing something incredibly brave," Ryan said. "Something most people wouldn't have the courage to attempt. That deserves recognition." They talked for an hour. Ryan told her about Sophie's latest soccer game, about a difficult engine repair, about normal life continuing outside Eleanor's bubble of therapy and pain. It felt almost like friendship. "Ryan," Eleanor said before hanging up, "why did you help me? Really? You didn't owe me anything. I was terrible to you." Ryan was quiet for a moment. "Because I saw something in you that you couldn't see in yourself. And because sometimes people just need someone to believe in them when they've forgotten how to believe in themselves." After they hung up, Eleanor sat in her apartment, the expensive, empty apartment she'd bought after her divorce, and looked at her legs. They'd held her weight today. For 4.2 seconds, they'd remembered their purpose. Tomorrow, she'd try for 5 seconds. Next week, maybe 10. And eventually, somehow, she'd walk. Not because it was guaranteed, but because a mechanic had promised it was possible. And Eleanor Blackwell had never walked away from a challenge in her life. She wasn't about to start now. 6 months felt like 6 years. Eleanor stood in front of the full-length mirror in Dr. Chen's rehabilitation center, staring at the woman she barely recognized. Gone was the bitter, hollow-eyed person who'd rolled into Ryan Mitchell's auto shop in a fury. In her place stood someone who looked almost alive again. Almost. Because despite 6 months of brutal therapy, despite countless hours of pain and effort and tears, Eleanor was still in her wheelchair, still unable to walk independently.